that we here highly resolve these dead shall not have died in vain, that the nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
That this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
The nation shall have a new birth of freedom.
Good morning. As you know, this past Tuesday, the President's made his joint address to the joint session of Congress. In my view, it was a hollow sales pitch. He's a good salesman. You have to give him points for that. Radical rhetoric. Empty promises. There was no there. There were no jobs plan, no infrastructure plan, no plan to replace the Affordable Care Act, no plan except a scary outline on immigration reform. The list goes on and on. And so here we are, 42 days into the Trump administration. Republicans have succeeded in putting Wall Street first, rushing to help Wall Street prey on Main Street and working families' retirement savings, moved to make America sick again, have sown fear in America's vulnerable communities with dangerous, immoral, incompetent, and unconstitutional executive actions, and, getting back to where we began this conference, allowed Russia's grip on the administration to endanger our security and our democracy. Any questions? Let me see that. Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So obviously you think that Attorney General Sessions should step aside, though.
Yes, I said that last night.
Right. Is there, though, is there consistency here on the Democratic side on this when there were issues with Attorney General Lynch and Bill Clinton in her context and whether or not she should have stepped aside? Is there consistency or not?
Well, thank you for your question, because there couldn't be a starker difference. Attorney General Lynch had a social encounter, serendipitous, but some might say, that the former President of the United States came by to say hello and they discussed their grandchildren. She did not have a major role in the Hillary Clinton campaign. This is a completely different thing. The reason we have been saying that the Attorney General Sessions should step aside and maybe should never have been confirmed is because he was a surrogate. He was a very important part, one of the first people in the Congress to endorse President Trump. And now we see that he, although he has not told the truth about it, had conversations with the Russian officials, which why didn't he, if they were innocuous, why didn't he admit it instead of lying about it? So it couldn't be more stark in terms of, no, they're completely different day and night. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Leader, one of your members, Congressman Keith Ellison, has released a statement that mentions that perjury is a felony punishable by jail time. Do you think that's an appropriate piece of this conversation?
Well, an investigation would show that, but the law has been broken. And what he was stating was fact. That perjury is a crime, and there are consequences to it. It remains to be seen what the investigation, what else the investigation will lead to. But perjury by an ordinary citizen is punishable in the courts. How much enhanced is that accountability for the top law enforcement person in our country? So let's see an investigation. I don't know what problem the Republicans have with the truth. They don't want to know the truth about the Russian connection. They don't want to tell the truth about their Affordable Care bill that they have hidden in the basement someplace. It's like a Houdini act or something. Our goals have been to increase lower cost, improve benefits, and expand access. If they have a bill that does that, we're happy to talk to them about it.
What can the American public expect of the House Intelligence Committee looking into the connections with Russia during the campaign, and is it adequate?
Well, yesterday, I don't know, has it been released to the press? Anyway, it was released to the press that there were a proposal of scope for what the look into to the Russian involvement in our election. That's a step forward. It's not a giant step forward, but it's a step forward that in a bipartisan way, the chairman and the ranking member have signed this letter of is that whole thing in the public domain now?
The whole thing, that there is an agreement.
That there is an agreement. Well, okay, but the agreement goes into different categories who they would call in it. So that's something. I would hope, though, that in that scope document that they have, that means that they will follow any trail, that they don't shut it down because it wasn't listed in that primary document. But it takes time. You want to see documents. I respect that. I'm an intelligence person myself. You want to see the documents. You want to take the time. But we want to know that there's a path and not just an avoidance of it by killing time instead of using time. So we'll see. But as I have said, I think while it's important for the House and Senate Intelligence Committees to investigate this, what we also have to do is have an outside, independent, bipartisan commission to look into, broader than what I just said, the impact of the Russians on our election, but the personal, financial, and political connection between the Trump organization and the Russians. Yes, ma'am.
What does it say to you that many Republicans, some are calling for Senator Sessions to recuse himself, but are stopping short of calling for a special prosecutor?
Well, in all of this, all roads lead to the Republicans in the Congress. What are they afraid of? They've been afraid of the truth every step of the way. I call it stonewalling. You have to ask them, though, why they're stonewalling and what they're afraid of. Yes, sir.
The Trump administration this week called for some pretty big budget cuts, including up to almost 25% for the UK. What, if anything, can Democrats, particularly in the House, do to push back against those cuts?
Everything is about the public. How many times have you all heard me say, public sentiment is everything? Abraham Lincoln. The public has to know what they are doing to our future. We all agree that we want to have the military that we need to protect the American people, to take an oath to protect and defend our Constitution and the American people. But our strength is not only measured in our military might, it is measured in the health, education, and well-being of the American people. Because the people are not only our inventors and our family, people who grow family and community and build our country, they're also our soldiers. And so we see, again, a budget's supposed to be a statement of values. What the president is doing is quite outrageous. He is throwing out the window years of compromise in terms of parity, similar amount for the defense as for domestic. At the same time, it's important to note that defense is defense, but domestic is also veterans, homeland security, the State Department, and all that is involved in our security and soft power, as well as weapon sales and the rest of that, are in the domestic side of the budget. So honoring our Camp David commitments and the rest of that, all in the domestic side of the budget. So in saying he's going to make these cuts, if he in fact increases defense this way, what is his mission? What is the mission? Tell us your security mission that would justify this. What is this? Is this more contracts for contractors? Is this more? What is it? what is this money for? A. B, how can you possibly take that much money out of the domestic side? And so then they say, well, we're going to hold veterans and Homeland Security, we're not going to cut that. Well, if you hold them harmless, then you even have less to invest in education, research and development. 100,000 kids kicked off of Head Start, probably $3.5 billion cut from the National Institutes of Health. That's probably 1,000 grants to scientific research that we wouldn't be able to do. For example, if they did a 10% cut across the board. The list goes on. It's tragic, really. Again, this budget's supposed to be a statement of our values, how we honor our responsibilities to the people, to protect them, to be number one in the world in terms of our economic growth. We haven't seen a budget. We've seen, what do they call it, an outline, blueprint, Minnie Mouse budget, I don't know, mini-me budget, whatever it is. It's not, again, there's no there. There's no there yet. And what we've seen so far is scary, very scary. And in every respect, whether it's protecting our security and not pandering to Vladimir Putin, not flirting with lifting our sanctions on Russia for their aggression in Eastern Europe, and not undermining our treaties on non-proliferation and the rest. What do the Russians have on him? It remains to be seen what the Republicans will do to those decisions, and if the allocations of resources to certain subcommittees that deal with health, education, jobs, our justice system, our transportation, housing, research and development, energy, science. It remains to be seen where we'll be making those fights, and we will take them to the public, inspired by Abraham Lincoln. Public sentiment is everything, and that is the public has to be vigilant, very, very vigilant, more vigilant than ever. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.